Good morning. It's 9:30 and I'd like to call the Thursday, November 30th County Council meeting to order. First item of business on your agenda is the approval of the agenda. As per our practice and bylaw, I'll highlight the ones that for sure we must discuss, and then subsequent to that, any additional ones you want to add, I'll open the floor. Items that must be discussed are number 1, number 2.1, number 4, including 4.1, number 5.2, 6.1, 6.2, 7.3, number 8.1. I'll add number 10.1V, number 11.1, and we'll add 11.2, section 21, intermunicipal relations. And that's coming on because there's a bit of a time commitment, but also given that it's closed, we all are prepared equally. Are there other items to add? Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Holland.
You missed item 7.6. I'd also like
7.6 actually is written in a way that it can go to the consent agenda.
okay, wonderful, that's fine.
So we'll leave 7.6 off unless you want to.
10.1H.
10.1H.
10.1W. So
And 10.1W.
Athabasca Regional Multiplex and Joint Recreation.
Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. 5.1 budget timeline. 5.2 was covered, 5.3 and 7.4.
Okay, so Councillor Holland's adding 5.1, 5.3, 7.4.
10.1G and 10.1R.
10.1G and 10.1R.
Thank you.
Councillor Kapitanek.
I'd like to add 10.1Q, thank you.
10.1Q. Councillor Minns, your hand is up.
Sure, I'll throw in 5.4 just for a quick discussion there.
5.4. Okay. Councillor Gerlach, do you have any you want? Committee updates?
Just a question on 7.2. Does that appointment have to be made by council?
Right now it does, because we're still under the old bylaw, but it's certainly something that could happen on the consent agenda unless you want to.
It can happen on the consent. That would be approval. Okay.
Councillor Chamzik, do you have anything to add?
I'm good, thank you. I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind rereading the 10 point alphabet list, please.
Councillor Holland might want to add one more thing. She's waving.
Thank you. I would also like to add, if we could, under business arising from minutes 5.5, CW 23-199, the pilot project snow plowing. We were just
CW 23-199. Can you share that motion with us? Is that on the agenda?
I haven't had the. Yes, I do. It is moved by Councillor Holland, who directed Min to recommend to the November 30th, 2023 regular county council meeting a pilot project that would grant administration the ability to provide residential snow plowing service to differently abled at the same cost of seniors.
That's already included on the agenda under 11.1. Is that right? 11.1? 12.1. It is 11.1.
11.1. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So going through the list from top to bottom after Councillor Minns.
I was just going to approve the agenda.
Okay, we'll go through the list. 2.1, 4.1, all of section 5. That's 5.1, 2, 3, and 5.4. Item number 6.1, 6.2, 7.3, 7.4. Let's add 7.5. I have a note on there, so we'll, and then 8.1, 10.1G, H, Q, R, V, W, or double V, 11.1, 11.2. Councillor Chamzik. Wallach.
Do I add 10.1U Farm Women's?
10.1U Farm Women's Conference.
Yeah.
Nope, you didn't say it. G, he said G. No, you said G. I don't. D is good. Do we need the list again? We're good? You want the list one more time? So 2.1, 4.1, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 6.1, 6.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 8.1, 10.1 G, H, Q, R, U, V, W, 11.1 and 11.2. Councillor Binns has moved the adoption of the agenda as amended with the approval of the consent items as noted in the recommended motions. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? And the motion is adopted 8-0. I heard for the next item of business, we got to skip 4.1 because of the time. 5.1, Councillor Holland, you asked to put that on the agenda. Did you want to move a motion?
And I guess I'm just considering.
Okay, so Councillor Holland has moved that we receive the revised budget timeline as information. In terms of discussion, Councillor Holland, the floor remains yours.
Thank you. So I'm just curious about the passing of the budget before we having a public consultation. Is that our intention?
That's appears to be the recommendation, and I think it's possible to pass a budget to get things moving. And it's possible for us to pass a revised budget later if we so choose.
That's what I was going to. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that that would be okay. Thank you.
Because the alternate is we have to pass an interim budget. And it seems, my personal view, more logical to pass a budget closer to the one you want to actually move ahead with than to do one that's based on some historical. Okay, so Councillor Holland has moved that we receive the budget timeline as information. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the Councillor Gerlich, you were a yay?
I was a yay.
The motion is carried 8-0. Motion is adopted. 5.2 is the proposed public works projects. This is one that I think I added to the agenda specifically because given that we haven't seen a lot of this, I was certain there'd be some discussion. Is there someone that wants to move the recommended motion first and then open the floor to discussion? Councillor Anderson has moved the recommended motion to accept the 2024 Public Work Construction Maintenance and Bridge Program for information. I'll open the floor to discussion. You want to start? I'll just work our way around.
Sure.
We'll start with Councillor Menz and because everybody's gonna have like this, we're all gonna have a question. We'll start at Rob and work her.
Okay.
Is that putting you on the spot? Do you want me to start with Councillor Holland?
Oh,
Finish with you?
no, that's fine. I just got a few questions, so that's,
I can't.
I guess this heavy brushing, the first thing is, are we looking at getting that all done in 1 year?
Through the chair to Councillor Minns, no, these are the proposed projects for prioritization during budget deliberations. This would be a 4-year recommendation.
Okay, and being, there's no locations on this, will that be coming to the budget?
Yes, maps will be provided through the chair, my apologies. Maps will be provided during budget deliberations.
Okay, and how did that, I guess, how did the price per meter get decided on? Like, is there from other locations of brushing, or how did that come up?
These were based on previous brushing projects of similar size, quantity, et cetera, and then based on the size per meter for that type of situation.
Okay, and I guess the biggest, the biggest question I got is how were these jobs derived? How did they come about? Who, under whose?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, this would have been the suggested administration recommendations.
Director, for clarity though, what causes these ones to get to the list and float to the top? Is there a matrix? Is there like, they don't, I assume
In the case of
somebody has to say, we think that we need 9,600 meters of brushing in Division 1.
yes, through to the chair, based on sightlines, ability for roads to dry, safety. So the operators send their concerns in to maintenance, maintenance does inspections. And then all of it funnels up to the Public Works Manager, who makes the recommendations, and we bring them to you.
Councillor Mins, floor remains yours.
The other thing, I guess, is on the road construction end. How do we, like, is that done through administration too, or is that been discussed with counselors, or how does a person get a job on there for a project for rebuild?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, these are entirely administrative recommendations and have not had individual council input as of this time.
Okay. And I guess, how does these ones get picked?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, these would be the recommended administrative priorities.
Okay. And
Just again, to clarify that, somebody drove around and looked. There's a score sheet because there's 2,400 kilometers of roads. Why?
These recommendations, Mr. Chair, come from concern areas that we're having difficulties with, again, with drainage, safety, compression standards, usage. All of those things are factored in before administrative priorities are recommended to council.
Okay, I probably stole enough thunder from
I mean,
everybody.
if you get, you're getting, I'm not marking my questions off saying answered. So if you fill your list and then we'll,
Yeah, I guess shoulder poles can be moved around, right? These are just an administrative decision through, but the grader might have been talked to regarding the shoulder poles and that.
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, all of these are just recommended priorities. Council, of course, has the final say during budget.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. When you mentioned that they're administrative recommendations and the priority, do you have like an actual, just curious, I know it's operational, but just curious, like, is there an actual like checklist and go through, or is it just kind of?
We have
Like
certain
first-
criteria in-house through the chair to Councillor Holland that we use when developing this matrix, and we have started to formalize that process in the last 3 months to build what we would hope to be a 10-year plan eventually. But at the moment, we are looking at a 4-year plan for brushing, a 4-year plan for road shoulder poles, and for road reconstruction.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So, and I think it was asked, and I just wanted to confirm the locations will come with the legal lands and a map.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
No, just as a clarity, unless you direct your questions to me.
Oh, I'm
and-
sorry. So you want me to go through the chair?
Well, no, just
This way?
like we're directing them to the table, not to the individuals. Anyway,
Okay. All right.
other questions?
I guess more than anything, the price for the per meter that we have already discussed, is that going to change at all for budget, or we're just basing it from prior historical data?
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, we generally place this on historical and then add a small inflationary percentage based on CPI indexing. So
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wallach, do you have questions? Nope. Councillor Anderson? Councillor Kapitanek? Councillor Gerlich? With your microphone on? Please.
Yeah, Through the chair, is it possible to look at some different processes for some of these projects? Because like when you see pretty close to 40 grand to do a half mile. My own thinking, I would. Oh, no, I could lean forward. Like if I looked at that kind of a number, I would be disappointed if I couldn't do the whole quarter, 4 sides of it for that kind of money. Like value for dollar spent really bothers me because it just seems excessive.
Through the chair to Councillor Gerlach, for clarification, are you referring to the brushing? Yes. And then through the chair to Councillor Gerlach, we actually are looking at efficiency processes in some of the capital purchases scheduled for the next few years and how we can bring this more to an in-house program.
Further questions, Councillor Gerlach?
I do, but I can't think of them right now.
Okay. Councillor Chamzik, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I think just about everything has been answered. Thank you.
Director, the couple of items that didn't get hit from my list of questions that came up from reading this. Do we own our own mulcher? Like if when we're looking at, almost $3 million worth of mulching, does the county own our own equipment to do this, or do we contract it? And do we do any analysis on whether it makes sense to own our own and go with that, or to contract it? And again, because we're about 48 kilometers worth of recommended mulching, with heavy mulching and light another almost 90.
Mr. Chair, we are building business cases for moving some things in-house. Currently, we can handle the light brushing internally with the rental of a skid steer. The heavy brushing is more contracted.
And I think some of the shoulder pull ones, I have concerns over why we would waste time and money doing them, given that the landowners farm right up to the gravel. Can't find any way to support us spending money on in the right of way if they're going to be torn up the day after we finish with someone's crop. Okay. And then the last one, and this is maybe for the budget discussion, but one of the routes is a gravel haul route. And why is that the county's responsibility to rebuild a road when it's a haul route for a commercial enterprise? Shouldn't it be the responsibility of the operator through the road use agreement to rebuild that road?
In Mr. Chair, in the case of a road use agreement, there would be mutual compensation involved.
Okay. Thank you. And I understand that's probably more budget. Any further last minute questions, Councillor Mittens?
Through the chair. Heavy brushing, is that gonna have any mulching to do with it, or is that the cat and hoe brushing and then the mulching is the light brushing?
Through the chair to Councillor Minns, it would be mulching and heavy brushing together, so.
On the heavy brushing, right?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, in some cases.
So if there's no further discussion, the question is on the adoption of the motion to accept the 2024 Public Works Construction Maintenance and Bridge Program for information. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing the motion is adopted 8-0. The next item of business is number 5.3, RMA advocacy efforts. Councillor Holland, you added this to the agenda. Did you have a motion you wanted to move?
Sure. I do want to move the recommended motion that council supports the RMA advocacy efforts in regards to quasi judicial agencies.
So Councillor Holland has moved the recommended motion that council supports the RMA advocacy efforts regarding quasi judicial agencies. Councillor Holland, the floor is yours to open discussion.
Just curious about the survey. Was it completed by the November 22nd deadline?
Mr. Chairman, no, did not have time to submit that survey that day.
I understand that they mentioned through the chair that they mentioned that deadline was November 22nd, but is it would it be possible to still send a letter of support or something of that nature, even though just to have it on the books for them?
Could reach out to Wyatt and just ask him if we can fill it out. No, that survey was with the AEC, so it wasn't even RMA coordinated.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It was just a flow through to the AUC. So for the future, we would recommend a far different process for filling out these surveys. It's very cumbersome to bring a discussion item on surveys, and the other thing is we're doing it on a hit and miss basis. We don't do it with every survey, but we do it only with some. That's probably a discussion item for the future. Is there a better way to do it? Especially when there are deadlines involved, because we reviewed it on the 21st and the deadline was the 22nd, I believe. So
I think I felt that way too, that sometimes with the RMA, some of the advocacy or the things that come out, they don't hit our table as quickly as we would like, and maybe at a future committee, the whole meeting, we can talk about the process for how we bring that up to collectively establish the mind of council on that.
Okay, so should we, I guess just through the chair, just going back then, do we have an appetite to at least put a letter of support together to, in hopes that they will accept it? Because we didn't need necessarily to do the survey, but we could also put a written, document in, in a letter format.
Administration, you have capacity for that?
we put together a letter.
Send it to the AUC.
Is it going to be encapsulate the discussion from that day? Is that really, because those, when you went through the questions, which you forwarded to me,
Mhm.
they were very black and white questions. So we can absolutely try to formulate a letter.
I can commit to work with communications coordinator and come up with something and circulate it. I think generally everybody was of the whole council is of a similar mindset on this, so we should be able to produce something that speaks for council without needing to overcomplicate it through a series of meetings to approve.
Do we need to put a motion on a secondary
Because-
motion here?
I don't think so. If we have supporting the efforts here, that's clear on the direction of council, and
Okay.
If you're okay with that, we'll just put it on the to-do list. And
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion that council supports the RMA advocacy efforts regarding quasi judicial agencies, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, the count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. Um, 5.4, Councillor Mins, did you have a motion you wanted to make?
Recommended motion.
Councillor Mins has moved the council, the Athabasca County Council strongly opposes the closure of any transfer sites within our boundaries. Discussion, Councillor Mins, do you want to open the discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this back up again, went through the committee of the whole and come here, and it's just mainly to say that the Waste Commission is looking at, I think it's a important direction that they're going. They're looking at trying to save money and just getting some discussion going on between the members of the Waste Commission to look at trying to save some money, and that was the easiest way to do it. Throw some ideas out there and start having the discussion go through, right? Everything's costing more and more money, as we all know. Transportation costs of waste and that is going up. The break-ins at the transfer stations sounds kind of crazy, but it is malice and it does cost us money and that. So it's just and I just wanted to highlight the last bullet point there. Next steps is just a strategy to look at trying to save money. So I think it'll be a very good discussion that we're actually going to have on Monday regarding this information that was sent out to all the members, so. That's all I wanted to do was just actually let the public know what this was all about and to look at next steps, October 6th meeting, so.
Any further comments? And I think most of us are aware that Athabasca County is the single biggest, is the largest single contributor to the Waste Commission. And the only municipality that is the home of transfer sites for commission members that are used by members of all, basically all the municipalities except potentially one. So it's, this will have a negative impact on our ratepayers, and it's not the right way to go.
Yeah.
Seeing no more discussion on the question of the adoption of the motion that Athabasca County Council strongly opposes the closure of any transfer sites within our boundaries. All those in favor? And opposed? The motion is adopted 8-0. I saw Councillor, it was quiet, but I saw Councillor Chamzik saying yes. Councillor Chamzik, just as a reminder, if you have questions you want to speak, also use the little hand thing, because I sometimes maybe haven't watched as carefully as I should have. The next item of business is number 6.1 on your agenda. That is the fire services bylaw. This is quite a long bylaw, as you're all aware. I would propose to you that we handle a bylaw like this by doing only a single reading at this meeting, and then give it time to come back to another reading, so that given the length of the bylaw, I think it benefits council to have the opportunity to read it, rest, read it again. And as you know, with other long bylaws we've recently reviewed through committee of the whole, even after 6 months of looking at them, we still were making adjustments even to the last meeting. Is Councillor Chamzik? Would you like to move first reading of the bylaw? Councillor Chamzik has moved first reading of the fire services bylaws. It's not good. That's not it. 015-2023. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just was looking for it actually. And of course I'm scrolling. It has to do with you being through the chair with the fire chief being able to delegate to someone else the duties of power, but still have the responsibility should something go wrong. And I was just wondering how comfortable that would be for the fire chief to delegate duties, that person do something horribly wrong, and then the fire chief still being
I
responsible.
think in
for it.
most organizations, we can let the fire chief, the regional chief answer, but in many organizations, the chief executive is ultimately responsible to the board and the organization. At this table, the CAO is responsible for everything that happens in the organization, and he obviously can't do it all, so it's delegated out. But at the end of the day, the buck stops at the CAO's office.
Okay, so that's what I was concerned about in the bylaw. It mentions the fire chief delegates somebody rather than the CAO. So that's where I was concerned that there might be some issue there. Exactly what.
But there's a tiering of delegations that occurs naturally in organizations. They're delegated down to a director who then spreads those duties out across their employees. But Chief Shalapai, do you have any questions you want to, or sorry, do you want to respond to your level of worry with that responsibility?
Mr. Chair, there's no concern at this time. It is, as you said, it's the tiering of delegation. Because we are in a fluid state with the organization, things moving around, there may be some responsibilities that have to be delegated short-term, long-term. So having a little bit of flexibility does give it. And as you said, as the head of the fire service, obviously the buck stops with me when in terms of things going right or wrong within the organization. So.
Thank you.
That's out of
Yes, thank you very much.
on first reading. Are there any further questions? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to move first reading of bylaw 015-2023. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, if any? The motion is adopted. The count is 8-0. Item number 6.2 is bylaw 016-2023. Actually, sorry, just backing up on 6.1. Would there be any objection from council to directing administration to not publish all the old former bylaws in the next two agenda packages? Because I think, you know, we've got it, we've seen that, we don't need to. If the next second reading comes with just the new bylaw, is everybody, would anybody object to not receiving that old stuff? Chief, when you do your package, is that understood, just the bylaw?
Mr. Chair, it's understood. We will condense it for the next second and third readings.
Thank you. Bylaw number 0162023 is the bylaw to create the council code of conduct. Is there anybody willing to move first reading? Councillor Wallach has moved first reading of bylaw 0162023. Is there any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of the motion to approve first reading of 0162023, all those in favor?
Aye.
The motion opposed? Obviously none. The motion is adopted, 8-0. Is there any appetite to move second reading, or are you content to let it move to the next meeting? I think, I mean, as a thought process, I think on a lot of these things, it is okay for us to put them out for public consumption, get them on the table, think about them, and then do them. So 2 in 1 reading, we can do 1 and then do 2 at the next meeting is also adequate. Okay, seeing no one's hand go up. The next item of business is 7.3, the October financial report. This one has a recommended motion to accept the financial and capital report as information. Is there someone willing to move the recommended motion? Councillor Kapitanek has moved. Did council accept the October and capital report as information? I know there are certainly some questions. Councillor Gerlich, do you want to start and we'll just work around the table? You'd say no. I can start. Okay. Who would like to start with a question or no question? Okay, I have a couple that I wrote down for, based on the review of those items. The report says on page 131 of your agenda that road graveling appears significantly under budget. However, expenses are recorded in common services, and there's also the balance will be recorded at year end. In an organization such as ours, it's my understanding that we keep track of gravel inventory. It doesn't make sense to me that we would only adjust our gravel inventory at year end. We should be able to track the usage and an estimate of what that's costing us through the payment to our contractors and our trucking sheets. And it seems to me that we've been told the gravel haul has ended in early October. I guess I'm concerned that by October 31st, we don't have a clear idea what we've actually consumed for gravel this year, and I'm wondering if the director can, or the CAO can address why we wouldn't be able to be more clear and accurate about what we've spent on gravel, given that we have an ongoing tracking of it.
So when we track gravel, we track with an estimate based on the size of the trailer. And then at the end of the year, we have third-party engineering firm come and do a pit survey for us and estimate the amount of gravel in the piles. So there's always an adjustment that occurs at the end of the year because we're estimating the usage and then doing another estimate of the pile. So because we're using estimates and not actual weights, there's a requirement for that adjustment.
So to follow up on that, I can understand an adjusting entry to reconcile inventory, but by the middle of October, we've certainly hauled gravel, and I guess I'm not understanding why we wouldn't have a number in our financial statements to know, approximately $3 million for the gravel has been hauled. And then at year end, once we finish our December 31st statement, maybe we've adjusted that back to 2.75 million or 3.25 million. But we should be able to get somewhere a lot closer than we are by October 31st. And the concern for me is if we're not making those trackings along the way, that we don't have adequate internal controls to know where we're going and where we're at. And so, and I can't remember what page that's on in the back. There you go. So on page 142, we're at 800,000 versus 2.4 million in the budget. If we don't have a control that allows us to know that we're getting close to 2.4, we could end up at 3.5 or 4.4 million and never have had a chance to put the brakes on this. So there's an internal control piece that worries me, and I guess I'm concerned, is there a plan to address that differently? Because I don't feel like I have a good sense of where we're at. CAO.
Mr. Chairman, I think this would probably go back to the Public Works Department, and we'd probably ask post-Christmas if they could provide maybe a report to council on best practices, on inventory control for gravel, and see if we're meeting best practice. For example, I know that some counties have due weigh as they're loading, and I'm not exactly sure what we're doing. I'm saying this from a point of ignorance. I don't know, but some have invested in loader mounted scales. I don't know what we're doing, but so that there's an accurate monthly count of where the stockpile is going. And then at the end of the year, of course, there's always a reconciliation because there's lossage, some gets lost in the pile. But maybe we'll bring back a report on what we're doing and maybe what best practice is for what we're doing. I think that might help give council some comfort.
And so for me, the concern is, not about being exactly to the ounce where we're at, but we have to be able to be closer than we're finished our gravel haul and we're at a 30% spend. The internal control there doesn't work for me in terms of our responsibility to understand where we're at as an organization. And I'll just run through the couple others, and that might knock off some from my colleagues, and then I'll move on to open the floor to others. I'm in all of I have a concern across all of the statements as it relates to depreciation adjustments, that by not having any kind of accruals in there, because this is a cash flow budget. So, I recognize in our year-end statements, we have to, obviously depreciation is a big part of that. But if we don't do any accrual adjustments, I feel like we have the capacity to create a misleading statement when we present it to the public, because the depreciation can be a significant component of many of these individual budgets. And if it's left out, it can create a situation where it looks like we're under budget when really we're not. And I know in smaller operations, the response will be, it's a lot of work to manage those accruals every month. But I would submit to my colleagues that at a $30 million budget, we need to have the internal capacity to manage some of that. But like the director, is it possible to?
So we've created internal capacity that will allow us to do that into the future. But before that capacity was created, just like in a smaller organization, it was a lot of work to do it. And our system that we use to track or to record the amortization was a once-a-year process. But we can change it.
Well, or have it extracted entirely from both the budget side and the where we're at side, but it just doesn't work to have it in one and not the other, because then when you calculate your variance to budget, it creates a misleading kind of space. The other couple of questions are, when I look at page 139, we've got provincial fine revenue at $76,590. And yet the October stats that were presented at committee of the whole are $139,000. Is it possible to clarify why there's a discrepancy between what we're being reported at one meeting versus another?
So the stats that Krista provided is based on the tickets issued. The revenue in the report is based on fine revenue received. So we don't receive the money from the
Okay.
province until the tickets are paid, and if they are paid.
And so is would it, can we understand then that the number that we're provided from Director Wilkinson reflects the net to the county if we get paid, or
I would have to double
because
check.
the
with-
provincial government keeps a piece too? right?
Yes, correct.
And then, unless I misheard, did you just say we show up here when we get paid? So they don't show up?
So
Is
the
this
revenue
accrual or-
here is recorded when it's paid.
So on a cash, we're doing cash-based accounting?
Yes. So when we receive the money from the province, it gets recorded.
Are we allowed to do cash-based accounting? Under the accounting rules?
If
Not
the,
only farms could do that.
if there needs to be an accrual for revenue related to the tickets, we would set up that accrual at the end of the year.
They don't show up as an accounts receivable somewhere.
No.
Why? Okay. The last question really then was on the bank balances. Are you able to share with us the current balances of the current status, bank balances?
Yeah, so our current balance is approximately 39 million in our bank accounts.
And which, do you have the reserve versus the restricted versus unrestricted portions on the top of your head?
No, I don't, sorry.
Councillor Anderson, you had your hand up. Did you want to?
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
With regards to, we'll start with roads and bridges. I had a couple questions. The road graveling seems to be underreported. And at the same time, the next line, road reconstruction, seems to be quite over budget. I guess my concern is if not everything's been put into the computer already, are we going to be exceeding that budget even more by the end of the year?
So one of the challenges we have is with our internal billings. So we know that the wages are properly accounted for. We know that the expenses that we get invoices for are properly accounted for. The revenue that we receive is properly accounted for. And then internally, we take those amounts and bill the different departments and sub-departments. So there is the opportunity to have amounts miscoded, perhaps to the road graveling versus the road maintenance. Does that answer your question?
We're not expecting it to exceed the budget even further by the end of the year.
No.
And then same with road grading, seems to be nearly at budget for the year already. And thankfully, we haven't had a lot of winter grading yet. So are we just hoping and praying that we don't get massive amounts of snowfall and requirements for road grading for the rest of the year? Or is there a possibility that that number could be out by a little bit too?
There's a possibility that that number could be out by a little bit too.
Okay.
Winter road maintenance though is also reported under the paved winter maintenance. So there is some budget there as well.
Okay. But paved winter maintenance wouldn't be all of
wouldn't
our
be all of
gravel
our
roads with
no,
our graders.
You're correct.
My other questions were regarding the Multiplex Society contributions. At our last Multiplex Society meeting, it was reported that our requisitions for both operational and capital for the year from the county have been 832, 569, 56 for the year. And the number reported here is 864, 795. Could you speak to why the discrepancy may be there?
I'd have to look into it.
Thank you. And my other question is about the tourism and economic development budget. On page 157 of our agenda package. The former tourism and ECDev committee had passed a budget prior to last year that was included in our budget that included some special projects. And although the committee was struck after that point, it seems that some of these projects should have continued. And I know that for sure one of them has, so I'm kind of wondering, are some of them possibly not reported here and reported elsewhere? Or do we have things that were just not done kind of in that area? And I can be more specific. So we have a contract with Freshette for our social media and for the Visit Athabasca pages and whatnot. But there was also contracts with Seekers Media, Go East of Edmonton, Fly In Barbecue sponsorship, contract with YOLO Nomads, and our contribution to the Visitor's Guide. That are special projects. I'm just wondering which of those would be included in what was spent this year and which would.
So I'd have to do a more detailed review to look at the specific projects. I don't know offhand, but I can add that to the list of things to bring back for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Through the chair, I'm wondering if the motion can read to receive the October operating rather than accept. Being accept is adopting it as it's written, and we have many things that are going to be looked into and reviewed.
If you want to make an amendment, but I'm not personally.
Okay, well, I would like to make an amendment to that then,
So can you, sorry, to adopt? No.
to receive.
Okay.
Rather than accept. Receiving is we're adopting it, and or receiving, I mean, it's going into the library for further discussion, further information and that kind of thing. Whereas if we accept it, it means we've adopted it as it's written. I see that there's a bunch of changes that yet have to be made. So that amendment I'd like to put on the floor. In addition, if I may carry on through the chair. Thank you. So I spent quite a bit of time going through, and I know we've mentioned and discussed it before, and I'm just wondering why. I appreciate the work that goes into this and the report and all of the paragraphs and everything that's going through. But what I had to do then is I just took them over and gave them all numbers and then put those numbers as a note number on the page. So it was easier to go through, and rather than having to go back to this report and then to the new report, you know, and try and correlate them all. Is it possible not just to have the note numbers with that budget and the notes for that particular department right on that page, rather than going back and forth in these reports? Because I know we've asked for it before, it's been done before. And I'm just wondering why there's a change, because it's very difficult. It's onerous to go through this.
Sorry, just, are you, to clarify?
I think the request is to transfer the notes from the front
report?
page to individual pages.
Into the departments, and then
Is that-
each line item giving it a number. So for example, when I'm looking at the administration, I gave it number 3 because it's number 3 on my page, went to the administration, went to the line item that it mentions, put my little 3 there so that I know what I can refer back and forth. So I'll go forward with that, with 3, actually, with administration. The 2023 budget for interest income was 425,000. The county has earned 1.318 mil in interest. How is that done?
Interest rates changed.
Yes,
They've
I
been
do.
going
I
up.
understand that, but I'd like to get more information, being that's quite a chunk of change.
So we based the interest revenue off of prior year's interest revenues, and when interest rates change, it changes the amount of revenue we receive.
Right.
So we weren't anticipating the increases in interest revenue that we saw.
Okay, so then this is strictly on reserves that we have sitting in our bank
Or,
accounts.
yeah, money in the bank accounts.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is I noticed, as you mentioned, in different areas, that the budget was budgeted in this section, but it was actually placed in this section. So are there going to be journal entries to correct that coding so that it actually goes to where the budget was set aside for, or we're just trying to go back and forth looking for that information?
So yes, we will do journal entries in some instances. In some other instances, those accounts in our financial statements get merged together. So since they get grouped together, sometimes we don't do the adjusting entry.
Okay. I guess it just becomes very confusing, and.
And I understand that because is very confusing for us too. So we budget at a higher level than what we spend the money at.
Okay,
So when we try to take those budgets and allocate them to where the money's spent, so it's a bit of guesswork. And so we're changing our system over from this system to the new chart of accounts with the new reporting system. To address those issues, it'll just take time
Okay.
before we have a system in place that functions the way it ought to.
okay. No, I appreciate that, because yeah, there's just a lot of confusion that I found. I have a ton of questions, and I probably will take up way too much time to get them all answered, but knowing that the journal entries, some of the journal entries will be made, be able to look for that for sure. I guess I'll try to highlight one of the other questions. Budgeted under contracts, is the,
Can you
sorry,
give us a page number just so that the rest of us could follow along, please?
I don't have the page numbers recorded on mine. I'm just looking on page 131 under budgeted, under contracts, under bylaw enforcement.
Okay, so on page 131.
So bylaw enforcement, second paragraph. So budgeted under the contract as a cost for police funding. These costs are typically incurred at the end of the year. And I just wanted to confirm we are not adding any retroactive pay for that. We're just going with what we've been billed and not anticipating anything further. I just want to confirm that that's accurate.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I also asked about the graveling, which you covered. It mentions under waste management on page 132, the budget includes costs for monitoring wells and for remediation engineering. These costs will be incurred, and we're just waiting on billing. What account will that go to? I didn't understand when I looked at the waste management department, it didn't specify those names for that account.
General, this is on page 149.
Those are included in general expenses.
General expenses. Okay, thank you. The other question I had with regards to FCSS, it says grant funding. This is on page 132. Grant funding is received on a quarterly basis, which is why the department appears to be under budget. As the year continues, it is anticipated that this department will be on budget, but the grant funding would be going under revenue.
Correct.
Okay. So for the expenses, is it just we're waiting for the revenue to come in before we put the expenses in, or?
No, the expenses go in as they're incurred. But the revenue comes for 3 months at a time at the beginning of those 3 months. So we have the bottom line looks like, okay, we have some more revenue than we thought we would, but it balances out at the end of the year.
I guess I'm confused then why it appears that they would be under budget if the expenses are recorded regularly and we're just waiting on more revenue. It didn't, I guess I'm just confused.
Because I'm doing a bad job explaining it. So, the revenue comes in first, let's say in January, then we have February, March, April, or January, February, March expenses. So right now in our budget, we have, it looks like we have a loss of 105,000 and the loss for the year is 337,000. It appears that our loss is less than it should be But as we move through towards the end of the year, it should even out.
Because the last quarterly installment would have been the end of September, so you'll have October, November, December expenses to come in. So we've got the revenue.
Yeah.
We don't have the expenses for the last 2/12 of the year, and in
Correct.
those last 2/12 we'll grind our way closer to the $300,000 deficit that we budgeted for. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. The agricultural services, page 154. It mentions in the second paragraph on page 132, costs relating to roadside back sloping are incurred in the common services department and are allocated to agricultural services at the end of the year. I'm not sure why. It wouldn't back sloping on roadsides main with common services?
So my understanding of this is that there used to be a grant back in the day for roadside back sloping that came under ag services. So Public Works did the work and then they billed the ag services.
Oh.
And that process has just continued even though the funding arrangement isn't the same anymore.
We're gonna. Sorry? Oh, perfect. Okay, there you go. That's awesome. Thank you. Again, for agricultural services, the weed spraying, the application rates based on correct procedures was mentioned here. Is that a huge change in like a huge decrease in chemical costs for correcting the application process?
It was a significant and I don't remember the number offhand, so I don't want to say a number, but it was in the 10, like I want to,
It was a meaningful change.
yes.
Okay. And then the adjustments for the inventory used will increase the weed spraying expenses. However, the overall program is still expected to be under budget, which is great. So did the inventory was, is that meaning shelf life? It had to get tossed? Like what happened there?
No, so we had inventory on hand from last year and that inventory was used. So similar to our gravel inventory, we do an inventory count at the end of the year and we adjust for the inventory that was consumed.
I see.
So I'm just getting inventory count sheets coming in now
Okay,
to be able to do those adjustments.
awesome. Okay. Thank you. Like I say, I have more questions, but I'll pass it along. I have to reorganize.
Okay. And remember, I think the expectation is that we'll see a improvement in the quality of reporting that comes to council based on the capacity that's been added. And so I think we can give the director a bit of a break on some of these things and look for the next time and just trust the CAO and the director to continue to improve the quality. Councillor Chamzik or Councillor Minns, do you have a? Councillor Chamzik shakes her head. Councillor Minns? We answered all your questions already.
Yeah, pretty well answered all my questions in that, I guess, under agriculture, there's on provincial grants. We budgeted 123,000 and we got 844. Now, do we have to spend that money?
No.
Through the chair, do we have to spend that money? Or how does that work?
So that additional funds were for disaster recovery programs that were applied for in previous years. I want to say 2018 to 2020. That should have been set up in our books as an accrual or a deferred revenue, but they weren't set up at that time from what I can tell. So now the money comes in and we have to put it somewhere. So that it's already been spent, just the accounting for it wasn't done properly
Okay.
at that time.
Okay. Just one more
Yeah, absolutely.
through the chair. And it's kind of like just a comment on the internal control of let's go back to the graveling. For someone who's actually looked after it. there is internal controls there and they're very, very simple to do, but then I could go through a whole spiel of how we usually do it, but I can't wait to see the actual internal control system. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Capitanic, and then
Through the chair, I just had one question, whether you can answer it now or get us the information later. But on page 156, under minor sports grants, just curious what grants were issued as the budget versus actual is quite a comparison.
So there is an item that is miscoded there.
Okay.
$1,800 was actually spent on minor sport grants.
Okay. So it's just a typo.
so we're not 338%. over
I just thought
budget.
maybe we bought a sports team. Thank you.
What you explained.
Now only.
Could you give us a little bit more clarity on
Yeah.
the 3,000% over budget there?
So there was approximately $68,000 in multiplex costs that were coded to that line.
Without wanting to stray into the operation world too much, but I mean, part of our job is really to ask about what internal controls exist. To make sure we're protecting the resources that are entrusted to us, that the people that are employed here are, kept protected from all of those things. What are the control mechanisms? What are the control mechanisms in place to make sure that there's some accountability for, so for me and it's not acceptable that something that's 3,000% over budget shows up here without a department head having addressed it and fixed it. So are there any internal controls where whoever's in charge of recreation gets to look at their own budget and say, whoa, something's not right because I didn't spend $69,000 out of my $1,800 budget. And then to come back to you and say, Director, I think we've got a problem. And this might be a question for the CAO. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Chairman, suffice it to say that I think in the discussions that we've had, this type of financial reporting is probably doesn't meet the standard that we all would like.
Let's meet our needs.
Let's put it that way. And I think there's room for improvement. I think we're looking at that. We have some meetings planned on that in the near future. So that when you get a monthly report and or a quarterly report and an annual report, the numbers are easy to understand, they make sense, and all the things are corrected before they get here. What's happening is actually Director Chernichan is noting that there are errors, but we don't correct them before they come to the council meeting. Is that fair? Like we don't do the journal transfers and everything. As they occur, if an error is caught monthly, we should correct it at the time, not wait till the year end, so that the report the council gets is a correct reflection of what actually happened. That's what's not happening today, and we have to start doing that.
But with the capacity that you've added, we're confident we'll get there.
Yes, and some adjustments that we will make.
Perfect. That got you quick. Councillor Gerlich, you've been very silent, but studying that microscopic print. I assume you have a question?
Yeah, getting back to cemeteries. Oh, we weren't there before, but that's right. The cemetery maintenance, our budget for expense there was 43,000 and our actual, oh,
152 for everyone who's trying to catch up.
and our actual cost was 7,000, which is 16%. But yet, when we're having discussions about cemeteries, we're talking about withdrawing
30,000 to cycle.
withdrawing the services. What's that?
Yeah, we had at a committee, the whole meeting been presented in the summer with information that said it cost us about $30,000 a cycle to mow
For just for cemeteries?
cemeteries and halls, and so I'm just wondering if are we confident that this aligns with what we've actually spent?
Well, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
That's what we'll wait and see what the answer is.
Sorry. With the cemetery maintenance, the I believe the reports you guys received earlier in the year were projections that if in ideal conditions, if we were able to complete these cycles without having rain or and with the proper crews, that's what they would be. And this is, we had rain, there was a reduction in the number of mowing crews from previous years. And so this is what our actual costs were.
Okay. Thank you. And the second question was on page 147, sale of water. And through the system, our sale of water is around 386,000, and our truck fill sales are almost the same. And I'm assuming with a 10 cube minimum on most of our users, there would be a lot of water there that's charged for that really doesn't go out and isn't consumed. I guess I'm just pointing out that that's a pretty tight margin that we have as much consumption from truck fills as we do from our entire water system. And anyway, I guess it's not a point or a question. It's just an observation.
Counselor Gerlich that's it?
That's it.
Counselor Wallach, or you haven't asked any questions? Did you have any that haven't been covered that you want to query? Counselor Wallach is good. So there is a motion on there's an amendment on the floor to delete the word. So there's a motion on the floor, first of all, to accept the October operating and capital report as information. There's an amendment subsequently to delete the word accept and replace it with the word receive. In speaking to them to the amendment, is there any discussion on the amendment to delete the word accept and replace with the word receive? Councillor Kapitanek. Is there any objection to just swapping those words? Seeing none, on the main adoption of the main motion to receive the October operating and capital reports as information, all those in favor? And opposed? The motion is adopted 8-0. Director, thank you for providing the report and being here to answer questions. It is, let's take an 8-minute break and come back at 11:45. It is 10:45 and I'm going to call the October 30th council meeting back to order. 10:45. Next item of business is 7.4, the Athabasca Landing trip. Is there a motion? Councillor Holland?
With regards to the recommended motion on the request for decision, I didn't have the motions from the minutes. The minutes
Sorry.
hadn't been completed quite yet, so it was just a summary.
Is there a motion?
Well, yes, the motion, and I'll actually read out the
No, is there a
motions.
motion from you?
Yes, from the committee.
No. I'm asking for a motion to this table.
That's correct. It's coming from the committee to this
The-
table.
No, I'm sorry. The committee does not get to make motions at council table. You can make a motion at the council table or somebody else does.
I guess it's you're misunderstanding. We had a committee meeting. There were motions that came from that committee meeting that need to be brought to this council.
So what motion would you like to make?
Thank you. So with regards to the request for decision, as you saw, there is quite a bit of history that was placed in here because there seems to be
Sorry,
some,
Councillor, Hunt, can you make a motion first and then we can talk to it?
for sure. With regards to a motion, it would be that the Athabasca Landing Steering Committee meeting passed two motions. One motion is regarding the request for assistance of Athabasca County to temporarily block off motorized access to the Athabasca Landing Trail at the Collinton Trailhead to prevent further damage of motorized vehicle use on the trails, bridge and area 1.3 kilometers north of the trailhead in Collinton. And further, to request that the Athabasca County apply for all upcoming Trans-Canada Trail grants to assist with maintenance, repairs, and trail cam purchases for the trails in their respective jurisdictions.
So you are moving, if, to summarize what you've asked, you're moving that the county provide assistance to block the trailhead 1.3 kilometers, sorry, to block the Collinton Trailhead and an approach 1.3 kilometers north,
Yes, there's
and also to apply for a grant?
an area. Yes, there's the 4 locations with regards to the blockage.
Okay, so could you just repeat the locations slowly? So
Sure. The 4 locations include the Collinton Trailhead at both sides of the little bridge, which is 1.3 kilometers north of the Collinton Trailhead. And at the North Road access, which is 654, or 654, I believe, and Range Road 233, 233, I believe it is, at the access point. This is the area.
and that the further that the like, so we need a motion on the floor. So then the second part of the motion is that the county administration be directed to apply for Trans-Canada Trail grant currently open to assist with maintenance and repairs.
Yes.
Okay, so just a second.
Maintenance, repairs, and trail cam purchases.
So correct me if I repeat it differently than your intention. Councillor Holland has moved that Athabasca County administration be directed to provide temporary blocking of the trail at the Collinton Trailhead at both locations on the bridge, 1.3 kilometers north of the trailhead, on the North Road access, which we think is Township 654, and further the Athabasca County administration apply for the Trans-Canada Trail grant for maintenance, repair, and camera purchases.
Thank you.
That's what your intent is?
Yes.
Okay, so committees don't get to make motions at our table. You have to make it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to explain what those motions were made to the committee. They were better worded.
It's always possible to come in with your motion on paper and give it to Leah as well. So there is a motion on the floor. This is in part similar to one that had been passed by council in August, 23-461, sort of an expansion of the same motion. Is there any objection to council to just ignoring the fact that we've already approved this in part? Seeing none. Councillor Holland, do you want to speak?
Excuse me,
more
can you repeat that, please?
We've already approved a similar motion to this, and so as long as there's no objection to carrying on with the discussion, we'll ignore that we've already approved some of this. Do you want to speak more to the motion to add blocking?
Well, I guess the original motion that was made back in August was to put boulders that enhanced the look of the trail. Wasn't the Lego blocks, was the boulders, the use of the boulders, but it was to block the wings of the gates. But what's happening here is in this particular section, because of the bridge out on the Cold Calm Highway, we are now seeing people using this section of the trail as a detour. And so the gates are being, the chains for the locks are being cut. And in some cases, further gate wings are being damaged. So this, at this point, it's a temporary blockage from motorized access. We at this particular area. So it's kind of, the other was to fix some issues. This is to temporary block to curb that issue that we're experiencing that's causing damage to the trail.
Okay. The floor is open for discussion. Do you have more that you want to say, Councillor Holland, or you'll get to circle back, obviously? with
Well,
the
I
last
did
one?
want to mention that the motions were made at the committee and I would like to read what those are so that everyone understands that the committee is recommending this. So it's not coming from me, it's coming from the committee as a recommendation. And that was on the November 17th meeting that Councillor Ida Edwards, Town of Athabasca, moved, and Councillor Tracy Holland, Athabasca County, seconded, that the Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee recommend to Athabasca County the immediate installation of temporary access controls, boulders or concrete blocks at 4 locations, including at the Carleton Trailhead, at both sides of the Little Bridge to the north of the trailhead, and at the North Road access to this section of trail to prevent motorized access to the trail and to prevent further damage to the trail and bridge until such time as permanent access controls can be installed. That was carried. And the other ones are the motion November 17th, Councillor Tracy Holland, Athabasca County moved, Lynn Jewell, Athabasca Recreational Trails Association seconded, that the Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee recommends that Athabasca County and other ALTSC municipal members apply to TCT, to Trans-Canada Trail, for the ALT Trail Management Maintenance Grants, and to Trans-Canada Trail and other sources for ALT Trail Development and Operation Grants when needed. And that was carried as
So
well.
what day was that?
Sorry?
Sorry, can you just repeat the date on the second one?
It was just the date of the meeting is all that I mentioned. I do believe the Trans-Canada Trail funding is mid-December for that particular.
What was the date of
grant.
the meeting though? Sorry.
November 17th.
Well, they were both
These motions were made at November 17th meeting.
of the.
Athabasca Landing Trail Committee.
Oh,
Steering
okay.
Committee.
Not the Recreational Trails Association.
No,
Okay.
no. The Athabasca Recreational Trails Association attends as a member of the Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee. So they also provide input at the Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee level and provide motions and recommendations as well. There is, just for further information, and I'll discuss that come at reporting rather than at this time.
Councillor Wallach, you had your hand up.
I'd like to split the question when it comes to that.
Okay.
And just, I guess, a question, like, if we're purchasing things with this grant, who's running the trail cams? Where's all the photos going? What's the FOIP issues?
With regards to the trail cams, that is a recommendation that happens from Alberta TrailNet as well as the steering committee. It's happening in other jurisdictions along the Athabasca Landing Trail. The cameras would be installed by the county. And I would assume that all FOIP concerns would be handled through the county as well, being that the county owns that trail.
Other comments? Councillor Anderson, or sorry, CAO, do you want to speak first?
I'll let Councillor Hanson speak.
Thank you. In the RFD, you mentioned an email from February 9th, 2021, and I was just wondering if we could get a copy of that email as well as a copy of the minutes from the ALT meeting, because I noticed that in the January 19th, 2021 Public Works Committee meeting, there was a resolution moved by Councillor Rawson to accept the Athabasca Landing Trail Management and Maintenance Chart as information. And further, that administration be directed to correspond to the TrailNet Society and CC all associated provincial representatives, indicating that Athabasca County does not accept responsibility for trail maintenance. So
Yes,
um,
that,
I would imagine that those two items are related, and it would just be nice to be able to look at both of them prior to us making a decision.
yeah, you can find all that information in the minutes. The agenda has that information. I am actually creating a succession binder and printing all of that information. So those are in the minutes online that you can see. What you're referring to, this maintenance chart, was actually not supposed to go to council. And so that is, there's a follow-up, and you'll see in that information on the agenda item, a letter coming back from TrailNet to say that's really unfortunate that that went there. Because was not supposed to go to council. It wasn't an expectation. What's happening, from my understanding through the steering committee, is we are looking at maintenance agreements. We are looking at what is required for maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a preliminary document that should not have gone forward. And if you look further into the agenda, it will explain and show those letters that came through from TrailNet to say, many apologies, that was not supposed to go forward. And then there's a follow-up email as well in there from TrailNet to Rawson, to Councillor Rawson, that mentions, no, Athabasca County is responsible and owns that trail. So when it comes to the trail operator, Athabasca Recreational Trail Association, because this has been going through several discussions, and it's unfortunate that we don't have all of those records and history, which is why I put this together in one place to be able to have all these questions answered. Athabasca Recreational Trails Association assists in maintenance where they can. They do not, they're not the owner, they're not the operator. They assist and help in maintenance where they can. That particular association is aging out, and volunteers are becoming difficult to find. So it was also mentioned in 2014, in this report, that it was very clear that the government funding for the trail was there, but is not as lucrative to get anymore. So I don't know if that's the right word, but basically is to say that the Athabasca County is going to have to start looking at how the funding of maintenance is going to take place, which is why the Trans-Canada Trail grants are available, and other grants, as we're seeing now with the Alberta, the provincial government has released $1 million for non-motorized trails on public lands. So
I'm going to cut you off because we're short on time. There was a specific question, and I think we've got to a very long explanation on that. Councillor Anderson, do you have further questions?
I was just looking for a copy of the email.
And
yeah, and you'll find that in the agenda on the online,
Which agenda?
the one that you mentioned on the date of the meeting that you were
the
referring
Public
to.
Works agenda?
That's here. I can look through here and provide, ask Leah.
CIO, do you have a comment?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I can hold my comment because our delegation is in the lobby. That's all.
Okay.
I'll circle back to it if you
Do
don't.
we want to pause table this item till after the delegation?
I would recommend
That
council.
seems reasonable. Councillor Gerlich, are you moving to table this discussion till after the delegation?
I am.
Councillor Gerlich has moved. We table the discussion around item 7.4 until after the presentation from our delegation. All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? The motion is adopted 8-0. And I'll go get them, I guess. Do you want to go get them? How many people are? Council, we are at item 4.1. we have Justin Grell. Is that right? Welcome, Justin. With our normal process, we'll briefly introduce council and then when it comes to you, the floor is yours and you can begin your presentation. We have a little around 15 minutes and then or less, and then we'll have some questions potentially from council if you're prepared to answer those. On your right, we have our CAO, Mr. Bob Beck, recording secretary, Ms. Blair, communications coordinator, Mr. Schenklenberg. We're close to that. And then on the screen behind you and behind me, Councillor Chamzik is attending virtually and Councillor Cromwell is unable to attend today. Councillor Mins, floor is yours.
Rob Mins, Division 8, Baptiste Lake, Highland Lake area.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Tracy Holland, which is a Division 5, and that is east of Athabasca, Paxton, Amber Valley, Parkview areas.
Good morning, Camille Wallach, Division 9, north of the river.
Sorry, to introduce myself. I'm Brian Hall, elected in Division 4 in Reeve.
Good morning, Ashton Anderson. I reside in Division 3, which is the Chasm Boyle area.
Good morning, Natasha Kaptanik, Division 2, Collington, Minnook, and New Pine Creek.
Good morning, Joe Gerlach, and elected in Division 1, which is the Rochester Perryville area.
So Justin, because the meetings are recorded and live streamed, there's a button on your microphone there. You turn that on and the floor is yours. There you go. And the water's for you as well, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm Justin Grell. I'm the Teen Center Coordinator. I've been there for 5+ years. There with COVID, it was a little what you count, what you don't, you know. But yeah, so this is the first time in our 30 years of operation that we've had a funding gap. And that's due to the casinos getting farther apart and smaller amounts. We are looking at other sources of revenue or, you know, grants and things like that, but nothing will come in time to fix our situation we're in. So if nothing changes, we are looking at closing on January 1st until our casino comes in, which would pay out, I think, somewhere around April. So 7 months. Yeah, it's our first time having that problem, so I'm hoping that the county can help. I've asked the town, they're waiting on their budget meeting to see what they can do. We have about, lately it's been closer to 10 to 15 kids a day, but usually I'd say 8 to 10 kids a day. Probably about a third come from the county. We offer free food, free snacks, entertainment. It's a safe environment that is monitored. So, I mean, I could go into details of the services like, you know, music, pool table, but
I think lots of us have never been in the teen center, so that would be.
Yeah, okay.
appreciate
So we have on the TV, we have Nintendo Switch, we have Wii, we have Xbox, we have just about every streaming service, Crave, all those. I have them all at my house, so I just double them up there. So Netflix, Crave, Prime. Oh, I don't know. I'm sure there's more. Amazon. Same with the we have the Alexa there. It plays music from Spotify, all the different streaming sources. We have pool, we have foosball, we have basketball, we have board games. For snacks, we partner with the food bank, so we get all kinds of food. Mostly, you know, just snack food, but I do get a lot of cereal. And then with the donation from the United Church, they give us $50 a month. It's not like a set thing, but I go up there whenever my card is empty, and and then with that, I just buy the milk. So we have cereal. Sometimes, well, actually, a lot of the time I buy pizza and stuff Mondays because it's half off. Yeah, what else do we have? That's, you know, just mainly it's just a safe place to hang out is what it is for the kids. And a lot of them stay there most of the day. There's no fee. So it brings in, you know, kids who can't do other stuff, as well as, you know, some of the other kids that are just in hockey and stuff and they just have a day off. So yeah, all free. But we're gonna have a funding gap. So if we can't find some help, I'm hoping the county and the town can both come up with the 12,500. That will cover us all the way through till 2025. Because of the way our casino works. So we just need something for the first quarter to half of the year. As far as our funding goes, we try to keep, or our expenses go, we try to keep it as cheap as possible. The phone used to cost like $100 a month. I just switched it to my cell phone because I don't mind. And so that saved that. Internet, we've got down to $20 a month, so that's like nothing. So our Wi-Fi and all that. In the thing I submitted to you, there is a few, the town brought up bank charges. I've since looked, some of it was checks, and I'm not sure what the other ones were, but I mean, it was less than $100 or something like that. It was maybe 100 or 200 bucks a year. So yeah, our expenses are pretty much just me, and I haven't had a raise in 5 years since I got there. So I'm trying to keep that as, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. I hope that the town and the county can both help us out. I mean, I figure we serve roughly a 1/5 to a 4% of what the multiplex does, and we're looking for 1%. So, you know, and we're a free service to the less and the youth, you know, so they don't exactly have a ton of money to start with. But if anybody has any questions, feel free. I would love to answer anything.
Colleagues, do you have questions for Mr. Grell? Counselor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. There'll be a few questions and go easy.
Thank you so very much for being here today. The teen center is a huge benefit to this community. It's been in, like you said, 1994 since it's been in operation. I see the benefits that have come from the teen center, and I really appreciate that you're working through and not even having that raise. So, you know, that's shows your dedication and loyalty to that particular program. So I appreciate that. When you mentioned the 12,600, is that 6,300 from the county, 6,300 from the town, or 12,600 each?
12 each. We need to come up with 20, but that covers half the year. So our total expenses are only, you know, just under 60,000 a year.
Okay.
And yeah, but the way the casinos fell, it just ends just to make it seem the worst. If we had it to where half was on each year, then it wouldn't be so bad. But we are looking at doing raffles and other things. So there are other things that we are attempting to get lined up. Because now the casino is going to be smaller, we have to do something. So we are going to try to rectify this on our own in the future, but nothing will come into play in time.
Is there, if I may, through the chair, are there any other grant opportunities that you have been able to seek for this particular situation?
What was it? It's CPIP, I think we've got in the past, but I don't think they changed the application time so that we missed it. And yeah, we have got it once in the past, so that will be one of the probably more secure ways that we're gonna fix this in the future, but nothing that will happen in time. And a lot of them just don't apply to core funding. They'll do like, you know, if we needed to upgrade the building or we needed wheelchair accessibility or a lot of grants are designed around trying to make a place better, I guess.
Okay.
But very few want to cover core funding.
And one last question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, through the chair. So I guess when it comes to, is the teen center still available for rentals for birthday parties and that kind of thing?
We haven't been doing that in quite a few years, and I'll tell you why. What happened is the town, because they own the building, would take, I think, a majority of the rental income, for one, and for two, we would only make maybe $100 on a weekend or whatever. And in that $100, you know, we'd be missing games, the fridge would be empty, the headaches were many and often, the pool table got damaged. And you know, you try to do deposit, but then we wouldn't be there on the weekend. So a lot of times the pool staff would do a walkthrough, and I guess not that they didn't care, but it's hard to know what was what, when and where. So, it was just a lot of headache, and it would only bring in for us very minuscule amounts, maybe $20 a weekend, kind of, because we weren't. And we could talk to the town about getting the percentages changed and stuff like that, but it wasn't worth the headache. I mean, one video game going missing, you've eaten a month of rentals, and the damage to the pool table, could be, if you paid to get it fixed, a year.
No, and I understand that and I appreciate that. It's unfortunate that, those experiences do happen. I know we've rented it in the past
Yeah.
for birthday parties. It was a great location and the kids always had a lot of fun. So I appreciate your information.
Yeah, a lot of them do, like the older or even the parents. Some of the parents coming in to pick up kids that are, man, I remember this place when I used to come here for birthday parties and stuff. So, I mean, it's definitely a memorable thing. And I'm not against looking into redoing it. It just, at the time, it was like we had 4 or 5 bad runs in a row, and it was like, why do we do this again?
No, understood, absolutely understood. And thanks again. I do believe it's a real benefit and an asset to have this in our communities. But thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Wallach and then Councillor Grlick.
Since the high schools left the old high school location, do you guys find a decrease in usage?
A little bit, but I think COVID damaged it more. I've only been there for just over 6 years. So I had a pretty good group. Well, what happened is they changed coordinators a couple of times. So that kind of messed with the numbers. Then they got up there again. Then we had COVID. And now I'm starting to see higher than pre-COVID numbers right now. So I'm getting back up there to where there's, like I said, in the just last few days, it's been closer to 15 people a day. During like some of that, when we were shut down and open, people didn't even know we were open, and we don't have an advertising budget, so it's just word of mouth. So I'd go up to the high school, make an announcement, or see kids at the multiplex and let them know it's open, stuff like that. But like I said, now we're finally getting the word of mouth out there pretty good, so I have a steady amount.
Councillor Grlick, then Capitano.
So a major portion of anybody's operating costs are the utilities and whatever. Are you fully responsible for utilities? And
It's a mix. It gets put into our rent, but our rent is only like $300 a month. So we've worked it out because the way that the teen center was funded and came about is the community came together and built it. But then the society didn't want to maintain or didn't have the means to maintain control. I want to say it was through FCSS or something, and they didn't want to be that directly. So they gave it to the town with the agreement that the town would rent it to us at cost for life, as far as we could tell. And there was a little bit of a change up when Flips wanted to rent it, and we were like that. So we went back and explained the history to the town, and so then it's just stayed the way it's been for last 30 years. We pay the town the rent of the equivalent costs. So power and all that are built in. We pay a percentage off. So I think we pay 1/3 of what the Flips, because there's no separate meters. So they just have to guesstimate. But yeah, that's a very reasonable cost. I think we pay roughly $300 and something a month in just the utilities, then another 20 in internet, and I think there's some insurance on there. So I think that's just like a $3,000 a year. But our bills, if you look in the financial I provide you, they're pretty much, I'm the biggest expense, and our total expenses are very low for what we offer for the price. At $60,000 a year, we offer a place where you can come and eat as much as you want. You can be supervised, have a safe environment, and entertained from 3:30 till 9 o'clock at night every weekday. I mean, that's pretty good price tag for that.
that's what kind of what I was getting at. I thought the town is already contributing in a way to
Yeah, I mean,
keeping that cost as low as it is.
yeah, they definitely help keep it down. Like, I don't think they charge us a tax on the land, so it's just rent. Now, recently, they increased it a fair bit, but I don't know if that's because the gymnastics usage is so high, it makes it seem. So there is some talk there, but it's not in percentage, it's a large amount, but when you go from 300 to 360, it's really not that huge of an amount, so. But
And having the ability to go to casinos, do you have charitable status?
yeah,
You cannot.
we are a registered nonprofit. We are looking at changing to a registered charity, so that'll hopefully help with larger business donations, hopefully, but that hasn't done yet. These are all the things we've started once we realize the funding gap is not gonna line up with our summer. It's coming here.
So you're working toward being able to issue.
Yeah.
Tax receipts.
And currently we can offer advertising receipts, so you can put it as an advertising budget. So there is that currently, but yeah, we're looking to,
And I should have written down the other two questions because they slipped my mind.
sorry about that.
Come back.
We'll come back. Counselor Capitano.
I just wanted to thank you for your very detailed presentation and getting us that ahead of time. We're not often so lucky and have to ask for financials, so thank you. I was a county kid, and you're saying that the teen center has been open for 30 years, and the original teen center, I believe, was opened by Rosman's down where the old pool hall was. And when I was a teen, that's where I learned to play pool when I'd be in town with nothing to do in the afternoons and evenings. So,
So you're
if
saying
anyone
it's
wants
more
to
than
challenge
30 years
me, you
old?
can learn great skills. It's possibly more than 30 years old, maybe not this location, but the original one. And it was created by volunteers who had a great care. So what I guess my question and statements are understanding that the majority of your expenses are administrative, which any nonprofit needs to run and operate, to look for grants, to do these things, to not feel bad that you missed a grant. We miss grants, even when we don't have a full, I want to say, arsenal of staff to look for those. So I can appreciate that, you're doing as much work as you can on the time that you're allotted with administrative costs. The 12,600 is that a request total to be split by the town and county, or is that to each? So you need
I've asked-
25.
Yes.
Okay.
I've asked the town and the county
Okay.
both for the 12.
That's cool. I
Six,
just
and-
wanted to clarify that. Now, are you looking at this being a reoccurring request or a one-time at this time?
I don't think it will be. I believe if the CPIP works like I believe it has in the past, it will fill year 2025 and so on.
Okay,
And then I believe you can only do that one every other year, but by then we should have another casino. And we're also gonna try to work on having raffles and
Yeah,
stuff and
okay.
other revenue things to hopefully not have to ever do this again. Can't
excellent.
promise that, but
Well,
With-
you do, there's lots, yeah,
Yeah.
there's ideas. Following up, obviously, as you are the paid administrator for this program, I'm gonna make an assumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you have volunteers that do supervise and run events as well, as you cannot all be there, I'm assuming, at all times, all the time.
yes, we have a board and
Yeah.
they, yep, and that's
That's great.
actually who's done the CPIP in the past and
Okay.
Carol does the finances all for free. So.
Oh,
I
wow,
mean,
okay.
Yeah, so,
So you have a lot of community support,
Yeah,
and
we-
that's incredible.
and that we do everything we can to keep the costs as minimal as possible.
Excellent. All right, well, I'll just say thank you again for doing what you do, just knowing that any person under the age of 18, I guess, can have a guaranteed meal or snack
Mhm.
or a place that's safe. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
You say your hours were from 3 till 9 PM? Give or take?
It's 3:30. It's
3:30.
right after school, so usually I get there slightly before 3:30. They allot that first half hour for administrative, but kids come in and I mean,
And then
So-
the age range that you serve is from,
it's from 12 to 17, but I also give leeway if they're younger and they don't act like I have to babysit, then I'm fine with that. And if they're older, as long as they're really understanding that this environment is not a bar, this is not where you come talk about stuff that requires age 18. So I very seldom have problems, but I mean, as young as, I've had 10 and maybe even younger, if they come with their older friends, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm flexible with it, but I do try not to have, be a babysitter. I've had some parents be like, can I drop them off? And I'm like, well, give me your number and we'll see how this works out.
Any further questions from the table? Clearly, it's a, valuable service. The process that follows, so the delegation portion of the meeting is sort of an intake of information. These items tend to come up later in the meeting again for further discussion. This item has been recommended already to be referred to budget. Your presentation package was thorough enough that council felt comfortable, having viewed that to recommend sending this to the budget discussions for a look at how this will fit. And so that's already occurred, and it'll be in the discussion package at the next budget meeting. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come talk to us today and for doing the good work you do in the community.
Thank you. And even if nothing can be given before January, just a promise of we wouldn't actually run negative till the very end of January. And then it's only 3,000, I think 600 a month roughly. So if we had a promise of something by then.
Our
then we
budget
would-
schedule is to try to be approved before the end
Oh,
of
before the new year? Then we're good.
So any decisions that get made, you should know by middle of December.
Alrighty, thank you so much.
Yeah, again, we appreciate you
having-
coming and spending the time with us.
Thank you for having me.
That's it. We have a few things to do, but given that lunch is here and it's hot and this is a natural breaking point, why don't we break would everybody be okay with 20 minutes to grab a quick bite and try to wrap this up early? So that gets us back at a quarter to 12. Ellie, we'll be back in 30 seconds. All right, let's call the meeting back to order. It's 11:45. Early lunch, early to work. We were having a discussion around item number 7.4, the Athabasca Landing Trail motion. Where we left off is a motion was put on the floor that administration be directed to provide temporary blocking for the trailhead at two locations on each side of the bridge, 1.3 kilometers north of the trailhead, at the North Road access, which is Township 654, and further that administration apply for Trans-Canada Trail grants for maintenance and repairs and for cameras. The question was asked to be split, and councillors Anderson, Holland, and Wallach have spoken, I think. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Capitan.
Just for the record, can you repeat what we agreed to do on that last motion, that we agreed we would look at this again?
The
I don't
like
have
the
it.
motion from the past, like
Yeah,
from
Yeah,
August?
did we agree to the blocking already?
Yeah, I
not
have
the
a copy of
grants.
that
Okay.
saved.
Just for
So
clarification.
motion 23-461 was that moved by Councillor Holland to direct administration to put in place protection measure boulders at the Athabasca Landing Trail entrance and the Collington Trailhead to protect the access points at Township Road 654 and Range Road 223, and further to utilize boulders or other suitable materials as directed by administration. It's
So-
worded a bit awkwardly, but it was basically to use boulders or cement to.
So to follow up, if this motion, just out of curiosity, if this motion failed, that's on the table now, would it in any way change the motion that was made and passed at that meeting?
No, for the other motion stands, you don't replace a motion by having a new and competing motion. Ultimately, that sort of had two locations. This one adds two more to it, so it's somewhat duplicated, but not quite.
Okay.
So there's more.
Thank you for clarifying that, Chair.
I don't have a computer open at my desk, so I don't know, but I when in our casual conversations that we've had amongst many of us, I think most of you know that I think trails have immense potential to drive tourism and other economic benefits in the region. And I think that we need to have a really good discussion around the trails, their fit into our development plans, the tourism plans, and even as they relate to quality of life. You know, there's the Trans-Canada Trail, which the motorized portion north of the river, the non-motorized portion south from town. There's bike trails being worked on in the community for mountain biking and skills there. There's snowmobile trails that exist and are looking to expand. So I think, you know, an overall the trail strategy, that's something that should be explored by all of us at a committee of the whole meeting. But I also think that, you know, we need to continue to be consistent in how we do things. And there's been no formal request come to council from the committee. And, you know, there's been no letter or or that, and now we've been told there's a copy of the minutes that are done. But in the fall, we haven't even seen minutes from the fall meeting. In August, we were told that there was a request from Trails to do some of this work. And as a result, we passed 23-461. So personally, I think we should defer this until there's a formal request from the steering committee, just like we do with other stuff. Councillor Holland, you get the final word, so I'm not going to come back to you because I don't want to, is there anybody else that wants to speak to the motions? CAO, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Holland and I have had numerous good discussions about this. I'm relatively new here and I'm trying to figure out exactly what the level of service we're supposed to be providing to the trails. And I did have the opportunity to follow up on every motion that's been provided to me by Councillor Holland. It's excellent work. She's compiled everything, and so it was easy for us to follow up. So thank you. I still can't come across one thing that says a motion from council, a policy, an MOU saying, okay, this is what the county will be responsible for, and this is what we will do. I'm kind of a like mind of you, Reeve Hall. I see tremendous potential, but right now we just don't understand what we're supposed to be doing as each request comes in. And so they come to council and you're kind of forced to decide on a one-by-one basis. And even the motion to apply for the grant, I think is, normally I would say this is a great idea, always apply for grants, but does that mean the county's in the business of now administering that grant and now we're monitoring the cameras? And so I think I agree with you, Reeve Hall. Council needs a good, robust discussion about what level of service are we willing to get into this and how much? And because it's a little more complicated. There are portions of the trail that are on county administered land, that'd be road allowance. There are some that are on administered lands by the Trail Association. And then there are some portions of the trail that are on private land that we believe there are no agreements for. So council needs to know all this before you decide, wow, we're going to get in the business full force. You better know where this is going. And normally we would tell you, if we're going to be in the business, we're going to assign a line item every year. There's going to be costs so that you can, when we have a good financial statement, you can see that this is where it's going. Right now, we kind of just steal out of infrastructure's department. That's fine, because she confirmed that we do have some concrete blocks. So the first portion of the motion, we could enhance that. Just to clarify, staff did action the previous motion with boulders in one area. This motion takes it a step further. We did do it. Is it 100% effective? That's the issue, right? So just to clarify, staff thought they actioned the previous motion to the extent that was needed. And I believe it's maybe not. Let's put it that way.
So
But
it would have been something that was marked as complete. We thought we did what was required and it's been checked off.
maybe it didn't work the way that we thought, but we would absolutely encourage council. I think I said this to you in a previous open session. We need a good discussion about what level of service we're providing to the trails, and then council can decide that. And then our job is to implement.
Councillor Wallach, you had only said you want to split the question. Did you want to speak to the motions on the floor?
Yeah, so the Athabasca Regional Trails Association on their Facebook page says it's a nonprofit organization dedicated to building and maintaining the trails in Athabasca, with a link to the Landing Trails website. So are we overstepping and taking over their maintenance? Because they're a nonprofit, they should be able to apply for grants. They should be able to do the work.
Councillor Holland, do you want to respond to that question?
Thank you. The Athabasca Recreational Trails Association assists in maintenance. So in the master plan that the Athabasca County helped finance, And there is a motion that they help finance this. So in the management plan and the governance of this, it does mention that there's 5 jurisdictions, the municipalities, that are on the trail that help to maintain and operate those trails, with the assistance of trail operators. So Athabasca Recreational Trails Association is limited in some of the work that they can do now. What they did do 10 to 12 years ago was a lot more aggressive. But again, they don't have the equipment anymore. They don't have the manpower anymore. They don't have those things. So again, they were not delegated as the only people to maintain that. So in our master plan, which is a link that they're referring to, you would be able to find that information for the master plan from the Athabasca Landing Trail, as well as for the Alberta Trail Net. Now, what's happening here is a lack of time, I guess, that people have to dedicate to this particular project. And so this project has been a continual build and develop. And then the portions that are built and open need, of course, to be maintained. And Athabasca Recreational Trail Association has done an exemplary job of doing a lot of that work. But again, we're talking about people who are 70, 80, and 90 years old. There are not enough volunteers to do what I think that this council is wanting that committee or that trail association to do. It's just not possible. And again, we're talking about historical information. We need to get that updated. And just to add to that, the steering committee is working on a management plan. The steering committee is working on a memorandum of understanding. All of the things that are being requested that would help satisfy council is coming. But again, as Reeve Hall mentioned, the minutes aren't available. I've been asking for those minutes. We now have a change in staff at Alberta TrailNet. They are now trying to gather and collect and work on and update and all of those things. So I guess the concern that I have is that if we've got 1.2 million invested into this trail through grants, et cetera, since 2018, up to 2018. There's a lot of damage that's happening to this particular section of the trail that is going to cost an exorbitant amount if we don't do something about it. For me, the boulders to prevent that access, we didn't have this problem with that when the bridge was operational. So it's part and parcel of, in my opinion, the county needs to kind of help out here. So
we've answered do you have more follow-up, Councillor Wallach?
I would just be in favor of waiting for the agreements to come through to further anything here.
Councillor Chamzik, you've been pretty silent. I know your voice is rough shape, but did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion? You can shake your head if you don't. Okay. Councillor Gerlich.
I'm thinking that there must be a way that we can provide some assistance without assuming the responsibility, just in an effort to protect the infrastructure so it doesn't get degraded, or is that word? Degraded. You know, while we're arguing out the technicalities of this, we should try to do something. If we don't, who would?
My understanding was Recreational Trails Association also had access to some of those concrete blocks that they can have placed.
I did speak with the president of the Athabasca Recreational Trails Association this morning. And because in our meeting that we had at the steering committee level, they informed the steering committee as well that they don't have the capability of moving those blocks at this time. They felt that if there's boulders that are already placed and that the county could assist, that it is extremely imperative that we do what we can to block that access. So they're again, they try to assist where they can. They're looking for anybody to say, hey, have you got anything that you might be able to, reject and give? But that information isn't coming forward either. So at this time, we're on a time crunch on this one.
I know, we talked about cameras earlier. There's jurisdictional questions that worry me there on the who's responsible for the management and maintenance of that data. Do we have the right policies in place? And I know, we've got hit, so there was a comment earlier about, to do what council wants. Right now, the position of council, the position of the Athabasca County Council is that council does not accept responsibility for the services or activities on the chart and have consistently informed the Trailnet Society that the responsibility for trail management is not theirs, not ours. That's the position of the Athabasca County Council. That came from the Public Works Committee meeting in January of 2021, and it was acknowledged by the Trailnet. And they did note that the ARTA typically undertakes the maintenance of those trails. So while I agree that there possibly is some urgency, if there's urgency, I think it's important that we go back to the standard that we've held others to and say then those organizations should make a request, a formal request like we've asked for from the healthcare recruitment and retention and other places, so that we know specifically what's happening, and then that we can further take the time to have a more robust discussion among us so that we can modify the position that currently exists for the council if we choose to. But like right now, the position is not, there's also, grants to groups, and there's other options here that might be possible. Now, is there anybody, the floor, of course, goes to Councillor Chamzik, sorry, and then Councillor Holland will get a final word and we can look at the question.
What is the possibility of having Trailnet coming in for that delegation, Tracy, in a time matter?
I can't answer for Alberta Trailnet as far as her schedule is concerned. This would probably be the third or fourth time that they've come to council to have this conversation. I know Athabasca Recreational Trails Association mentioned they would have no problem coming in as being a delegate as well. And we'll also reiterate exactly what I've been trying to explain. So again, we'd have to contact Linda Strong Watson with Alberta Trailnet to see what her schedule was like for that.
I think in fairness, to say the third or fourth time, I mean, nobody in this room was present for those discussions as far as I can remember in the last 25 months. So I don't carry the knowledge of the prior council. We just carry the decisions that they've made forward, right? Like it would be nice for us to have it because there's nobody can say, here's what we have.
But again, the motion that you read, I think, has a little more beef to that as well, because they were looking for a confirmation letter from Alberta Trailnet, and which Dwayne Rawson's email is specific for that. So you're reading a little portion of it without the full
I think
story.
I think the package has that same feature, and that's why a more robust discussion is important.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. However, I'm just saying there is more information than what you've read there that's been provided in emails that are in the agenda packages.
Any further discussion? Councillor Mins?
Yeah, I really truly believe that too, that we need a better discussion on this whole trail system and everything. Again, through my background in the county, we were asked before to help out on maintaining the trail and helping out in different areas and stuff like that. And the trail is a great thing, but it's going to take a lot of money to maintain it. And that's got to be a budget item where, and even having somebody with the knowledge on how to maintain the trails is another thing. Our public works group over there are road maintainers. They're not trail maintainers. And there's
construction grader won't work down the trail.
And not really, no. And just to get access to these trails is to maintain them is going to be an undertaking. So we need to have a lot of discussion on this, and with the understanding of what on the budget, what it's going to do for this. We could end up with another entity of Athabasca County, the trail maintainer group under Public Works. Who knows? But it's just not an easy go out there and throw a little bit of sand down and put a culvert here and all this. I've been asked to do that and it's an undertaking measure to do when you're trying to maintain 2,400 kilometers of road. That's my point. We need a better, we need a huge discussion about this before we start saying yes to us maintaining it.
It seems like the discussion is, we've got most of it on the table. Counselor Holland, before I call a question, do you have anything new to add to the discussion?
No, I just would like to confirm the information that council is looking for, being a memorandum of understanding, trail policy, a maintenance agreement, level of services, a formal request from the steering committee, being that the motions, I guess, are not sufficient. You would like to see those in a minutes, correct? Or would you like to see a
I
letter?
think we need to see what council wants. We haven't voted on the question.
I was just, yeah, you just mentioned a formal request, so just wanted to confirm.
I've said that I think
Okay.
we should have a formal request. That's not what council has said.
Okay, and that we need a better understanding of what is required on the trail. Correct? Is that what I'm kind of gathering from all the information here? I just want to make sure
It seems like a reflection of what I remember the discussion, that I think this is, I mean, it's from the discussion at the table, it seems like this is one we should take to committee of the whole for you know, a deeper dive and you know, and for me, and not speaking for the other 7 of you at the table, you know, how this trail fits with our other trails and our overall trail priority in the county and where that fits in DECDEV. So if there's nothing new to add to the motions, I'm gonna, on the question of the adoption of the motion to direct administration to apply for the Trans-Canada Trail Grant currently open to assist with maintenance, repairs, and trail cams, all those in favor? And opposed? The count is 4 and 4. The motion fails. On the question of the adoption of the motion to direct administration to request Athabasca County provide assistance as per the minutes, specifically to create temporary blocking at the Collinton Trailhead at 2 locations, 1.3 kilometers north of the trailhead, and at the North Road access on Township 654. All those in favor?
there was 4.
That was 4.
The
Trailhead, 2 locations,
Okay, thank you.
and, yep. But I can call, so trailhead, 2 locations, 1.3 kilometers north, which are the left and right sides of the bridge, and North Road access Township 654. Is everybody clear on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Count is 4 and 4. The motion fails. Councillor Kapitanek has made a motion to bring a discussion on trails and trail strategy to the committee, to a future committee, of the whole meeting.
Yeah,
So
I'll
we can find the right.
find the right time and have the right discussion.
Okay. Councillor Wallach.
I amend that to after the Athabasca Recreational Trails Committee and the Athabasca Landing Steering Committee present to council.
This amendment proposed to bring this to committee of the whole after Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee and Athabasca Recreational Trails Association present to committee of the whole. Present to us in some format. Is there any objections to adding that amendment? Seeing none, we'll consider it part of the main motion. So Leah, in the minutes, that would record as an amendment that was offered and voted on unanimously. Discussion on the motion itself. Seeing none. CAO.
Mr. Chairman, after the vote, in order to expedite discussion on this item, it's just going to take a bit of time. What I'm probably going to do is get a proposal by the engineering consultant that handles all the trail business for Lac La Biche County, because I've already spoken to him about something else. He's the consultant that's working there. It's the EDS group out of Stony Plain. I'd probably get a proposal from him to see, can you expedite a discussion paper to us about everything? Can we bring this trail business into focus? And I know this individual and I know that he could do that quickly. So just so you know, it's whatever you decide, that's probably where I'm gonna go with it. And I would use some consultant money that we've got stashed somewhere.
That works. I mean, council provides some direction, and if you need to engage services to accomplish that, I think that's within your authority. Ms. Blair, I'm gonna read what I think was the motion, and if that wildly differs from what you've typed, can you correct it? That there's a motion to bring the discussion around trails and the trail strategy to committee of the whole after the Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee and the Athabasca Recreational Trails Association have presented to council or committee of the whole. Councillor Holland?
Will administration be sending a invitation to both those entities, or how is that going to happen? If we're asking them to be delegate, I was wondering
I
if we
mean,
would be formally inviting them.
Or the rest.
Mr. Chairman, we would if council passes the motion. Absolutely.
Okay, are we clear on the motion? All on the question of the adoption of the motion to invite or to bring this discussion to committee of the whole and to do so after we've had presentation from the two trail organizations. All those in favor? Opposed? So it's 8-0. The motion's adopted. Item number 7.5 is policy amendments. Administration has recognized weakness in policy. Is there anyone willing to move the motion? Councillor Holland? Councillor Holland has moved the adoption of revised policy 8120 and the adoption of revised policy 8105. Councillor Holland, do you want to open the discussion or reserve your comments till the end?
Yeah, I'll reserve. Thank you.
I'm the one that added this on the agenda or took it off the consent agenda. Given that these two committees are both comprised of the entire council, I'm wondering if it would please council to change the wording on 8120 from at the first policy review meeting to at the org meeting. If we're appointing the entire council, we might as well appoint the chair and the vice chair at the org meeting while we're doing all the sorting. And the same thing to replace the words at the first budget meeting with at the org meeting. But is that an amendment that anyone would make? Okay. Councillor Minns? Is there any objection to swapping that out, or do we want to vote? Seeing none, so Ms. Blair, on an amendment like that, once there's no objection to doing it, the minutes would record that as an amendment that's proposed and carried 9-0 or 8-0 or whatever. Okay. In terms of the rest of the policies, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Councillor Holland, do you want a word to close before I call the question?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Okay. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve revised policy 8120 and 8105 with the amendment that the appointment of chair and vice chair be at the org meeting and not at the committee meetings. All those in favor? And opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. 7.6 was included on the consent agenda. We are now moving along to number 8.1, calendars. Councillor Holland, were you waving or do you?
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. On calendars, I'll just add a couple of dates if I may.
Sure.
Community transportation well, the next meeting will be January 10th. And the master plan discussion with Athabasca Landing Trail is January 12th.
Master plan discussion for Athabasca Landing Trail is January 12th and community transportation is January 10th. Let's just go around the table. So I'm going to go the other way this time. Councillor Minns. If they're okay with that, Councillor Wall.
I might end up stealing her thunder though.
Oh, well, then Councillor.
ASB conference, provincial conference is on from the 22nd to the 24th of January.
How many, how many people are going to that? All four councillors are going?
There are 4.
Really? You're right in the middle of cabin. You won't be back for council?
Yeah, you're going to the longest trek, Joe. Couldn't get much farther away.
Um, given that we're gonna have 4 counselors absent. It seems reasonable that we look at rescheduling the county council meeting, because we would barely make quorum if somebody didn't come. Would it be reasonable just to move that one day to the 26th? As much as nobody loves Friday meetings, move to, I would propose we shift county council from the 25th to the 26th of January. Does that work for the majority of council? Councillor Chamzik, please speak.
Would we be able to move it to the 18th?
The 18th is more problematic because it's the time frame between council meetings is too short. I think from an.
What about the 30th?
Okay, the other proposal is the 30th. So let's quick poll. Who likes the 26th and who likes the 30th? Rob, 30th?
Yeah.
Councillor Holland? 30th. 30th? It sounds like the 30th. I like the 26th better, to be honest. So we'll move county council to the 30th at 9:30 a.m. Councillor Mins, did you have other things as we move around?
No.
No. What's that? I don't have an MPC meeting. Oh, the 23rd. Let's well, sorry, Councillor Chamzik, you're on deck, okay? So MPC meeting's on the 23rd. There's 5 people for that. That is, what do we need for quorum for MPC? We need 5, right? You want to move it to the 30th as well? At 9?
Yes. Okay.
Ashton, can you make 9? So why don't we do MPC at 9:30, council at 10? Is that good for everybody? Councillor Chamzik, you're nodding. Okay, Councillor Chamzik, you are on deck. You want to add anything to the agenda?
Sure. Starting December 14th. I have a Boyle Library. The 21st is Town Library. And then on January 18th will be Town Library. That's all I know so far. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Blair, did you catch that? Councillor Gerlich, do you want to add anything to December or January's calendar? Okay, when you know, do you want to just email Ms. Blair and we'll get it on the next council agenda? Councillor Capitano. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. There is a Athabasca Regional Multiplex Society AGM and regular board meeting on December 18th, 9:30 a.m. There's also a Pembina River Zone meeting on January 22nd in Edmonton.
It shouldn't fly by.
We've- the other one that I would add, Greater North, is actually on the 29th in January and not the 22nd. Councillor Wallach.
Okay, December 14th, we have an ARED meeting. December 15th.
Is that here?
Yes. I think so. December 15th, Farm Women's meeting. ASB conference, and January 29th, the Healthcare Retention Committee.
Sure, we'll have a choice ago.
Sorry. And sorry, Alberta Hub. Alberta Hub is January 17th.
Counselor Holland.
Sorry, I did forget. There is also steering committee, ALT steering committee, January 26th.
ALT Steering Committee, January 26th. Okay. Where's that one located?
That's in Edmonton. Pardon me, that is in Edmonton. Pardon me?
So Counselor Chamzik, I don't know if Counselor Holland's microphone is on. There's an ALT Steering Committee, January 26th in Edmonton.
Yes, I did catch that. And I also missed FCSS for January 15th.
I'll bet you Counselor Gerlich missed that too. FCSS is January 15th. Any further adjustments? Seeing none, Counselor Chamzik has moved the adoption of the calendars as amended. On the question of the adoption of the calendars, all those in favor? The motion is adopted. That's 8-0. Forgot to ask for opposed, but I think we're safe on that. Okay, if we can, we got a few to get through on the reports, which is excellent. Counselor Holland, I think you added 10.1G Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee.
I haven't provided reports on the last couple months because I too have been waiting for the minutes to come out. There are some corrections that need to be made in some of them. And again, staff changes has delayed some of that work happening from that society. So once I get that information, I will be forwarding that to council so that all of that is up to date. The other motion that was made at the steering committee was November 17th. Again, that was the meeting. Councillor Ida Edwards, Town of Athabasca, moved. Lynn Jewel, Athabasca Recreation Trail Association, seconded that the ALT Steering Committee review and update the 2010 Master Plan document for development of a formal ALT Regional Partnership Agreement. So again, the concerns I think that this council have hopefully will be addressed as we move forward with some of these projects that are going on with the ALT. At the last meeting, that we held there, we discussed quite a few different things, and one of the main was the action list, which is huge. But not only is the action list huge, it's old. It's there's items on here from 2009, 2011, 2012, et cetera, from all of these different jurisdictions. So that is being cleaned up, and all the jurisdictions that the 5 different governments will be looking at that and looking into how to clean that up. There's also discussion on, I don't know the exact name, but the Iron Horse Trail has 1 manager, 10 municipalities, and it is working extremely well for them. I think it's like a, what is they call it? Not a company 9. I'm not exactly sure of the name, but regardless, it's something that the ALT Steering Committee is looking at, because the ALT Steering Committee is also a unique committee in Alberta that functions the way we do. It's not something that's done in trail systems throughout Alberta. This is something that's extremely unique to this particular section of the Trans-Canada Trail, the Athabasca Landing Trail. We also discussed looking at getting the full history of how the Wilfong Bridge came about, because there needs to be a bridge opening there, as well as a commemorative plaque, because again, we've mentioned in the past, the Wilfongs have donated land for the bridge to sit on. What else did we do? We're looking at, of course, funding in the budget and whatnot, and looking at getting formal documentation on that. We discussed, of course, the repairs that are going to be needed along that section of the trail we discussed today, and what the committee was needing there. Looking for a home again for the minutes so that they can be downloaded for the public to also see. So that's something else that's being discussed. Cameras were discussed that we talked about earlier. And with regards to the historical aspect of the trail, it's not officially registered as a historical trail. It is a heritage trail. It is mentioned in quite a few different areas, but because there is private land involved, it was difficult to get that designation through. from my understanding. We discussed different jurisdictions as well. The Georges Bridge, which is the bridge in the town jurisdiction that is currently out. The town is going down and making sure that the signage is in play, and making sure, you know, any hazards and whatnot are signed so people are not looking at that. So the town is doing that through their maintenance committees, or maintenance departments. Oh, the other thing was, we discussed again, the possibility of the old baseball diamond lands in Colleton. So this has been something that's been coming in over and over and over again. And there was a plan apparently in somebody's books with regards to how that was looking from a consultant's point of view. And that was something that was going to be brought hopefully soon to the ARED, is that how you say it? ARED committee. So Linda Watson Strong was sending an email out to that group to make sure that there was a hard copy of that plan in the files and then could be transferred forward. The Saudi Bissell staging area, which is up by the Peace River on the other end of the Trans-Canada Trail on the north, there was a whole pile of signage and whatnot that was installed because of that staging area. There's no overnight staying. The outhouse, of course, is always maintained and all of that kind of stuff. So we discussed that. The Westlock County, they've been taking out money for the insurance on the Wedwater Bridge. So there's always insurance concerns throughout the trail, but all the different government jurisdictions are looking after that. We talked about the River Valley Alliance, which of course covers the trail section more to the south. And they end up looking after 1/3 for funding. 1/3 is the Trans-Canada Trail, 1/3 is federal, and 1/3 comes from the municipality that they're in. Of course, funding are always challenges. And the Trans-Canada Trail is looking at new streams. And of course, federal and provincial grants that municipalities can be successful in applying for. There is more coming from the provincial government. Again, we talked about the announcement that was made for the $1 million that the provincial government has allocated for non-motorized trails on public lands. So that's something I was looking into, was to determine if the public land definition included municipal owned land that we have in the trail, to see if that we even are able to apply for that. And again, we talked about the other different, the CFEP community grant, the duty of care for insurance, that kind of thing. The master plan summary report discussed the high level, the budget for it, and all of those things, memorandum of understanding. So of course, there's lots of conversation, and so hopefully, like I say, some of the concerns for that this county is having will be addressed shortly. Waypoints, of course, are needed for every TCT sign that we have along the trail. So that is coming and needs to be forwarded, of course, to Trans-Canada Trail. So they have their records up to date, as well as know where their signs are, so that they can be updated whenever a logo is changed. I think that's pretty much covers most of the conversations that have taken place there.
Yeah, Councillor Captain.
Just through the chair, I wish I would have asked this earlier. How important are the cameras to be set up quickly?
Well, I guess we do, okay, how do I put this? We have a bylaw, an off-highway vehicle bylaw, and from my understanding through the interim CAO, Vincent, is that we are covered under that bylaw for trails, so we can enforce on trails. Because of the issues that we're having in that particular section, in my opinion, personal opinion, it seems that footage would be beneficial for prosecution. So it's all dependent on how this council feels the importance of that particular area.
Councillor Mins.
I guess the protectiveness of the cameras, is there a way of protecting them so someone doesn't come in and take them, remove them and that?
I really can't answer to how that would be installed, but I would assume it would be as high as possible. And I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not a trail cam expert for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the good work you do there. The Colleton baseball diamonds are owned by the Colleton Community Club, I think, if you need a contact. There's a split. The hall is on the county land. The Colleton Community Club's name is on the ball diamonds. All right. Just like curling. Next on the list is 10.1H. I'm not sure, Councillor Anderson or Wallach.
Yeah, so we had our board meeting on November 20th.
Can I stop you for 1 second? I'm sorry. Excuse me, sorry. I've written down to ask Councillor Hall, is there an easement on the Wilfrong Bridge?
Where
The Wilfrong Bridge? You talked about that being donated, like. There's a difference between, yeah, you can put it there
Yeah.
and legally put it there.
the easements are currently all being worked on. So there are some sections of the trail that I understand have easements, some don't. Like, for example, the county-owned areas, as far as I know, the easements aren't in place, but that
We
is,
need easements on our own land.
I think for making sure that if it gets sold, that that portion is considered still the trail. So I think that's the protection that, and it's being discussed as well. And I'm sorry, I didn't mention that, but that's also something that's being discussed at the steering committee, is to dig into those easements.
Okay, sorry about that. Councillor Hall, Anderson, I apologize.
Thank you. For my report for the Athabasca Regional Multiplex Society Board. Our board meeting was November 20th. We discussed some amendments for our capital budget. The 2024 capital budget requisition we will be seeing will be a request for $95,000 per municipality. Some of the items included are fire system repairs at the theater, roof and floor repairs at the field house, wheelchair accessible doors for the pool, and PA system repairs for the multiplex building. And because they are listed as PA system repairs, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that's apparently if your child gets lost at the multiplex, that they can page everybody. It's not the sound system that they use for different events. So we've had to clarify that at the board level a couple times. I just want to start clarifying that here as well. And our AGM will be at our December 18th meeting. So at our next county council meeting, we should see a formal request for council to appoint a member to act as the voting member at the AGM, because each municipality gets one person to vote on their behalf. Council needs to appoint that person. So that's all I have. I don't know if the other members have anything to add to this.
10.1Q, Councillor Kapitanek.
All right, so I attended my first meeting on the Community Futures of Twatna and Region Committee hosted in Westlock. I got there and came to an understanding quickly that maybe this council or previous councils didn't or weren't encouraged, but the Community Futures group itself would like to see representatives on their board sit for a minimum of a 4-year term. So ideally, if you were appointed at the beginning of an election, that you would stay on the committee. I did not know that, and I'm not sure if that was brought up in the past. Obviously, we have that choice, but just to get it on the record for the future at the next election, that maybe councillors that are elected at that time might want to look at going along their plan of a 4-year term, and it works towards the way they run their projects, and they want those same voices. So that was brought up. I didn't feel unwelcome, but it definitely was like, oh, you're the third one here. Right. And so there was that. A great, interesting and diverse group of people working together with economic development in mind and small business, encouraging small and rural business, as well as teaching youth to become entrepreneurs, which I think is great, coming from an entrepreneurship history and upbringing. I did note that I believe there is supposed to be 4 to 5 meetings a year. And at this meeting, the board decided that they wanted more meetings. And so there may be 7 to 8 meetings a year. But that is unclear at this time. And so I am at the will of the call of the committee to whenever they decide to have meetings. So just so you know that. And I don't know how much notice I will get. So that's pretty much all I can report. There wasn't much else going on that day.
Councillor Wallach, sorry, Councillor Holland, do you have a question?
No, I just think I'm next.
Oh, sorry, I crossed the wrong one off. Counselor Holland,
Thank you.
10.1R, community transportation. I was getting ahead.
We had our meeting yesterday, so of course minutes are not quite out yet, which again, I'll forward when they're ready. So just briefly, we had a conversation with regards to our draft budget that will be coming forward to council with Director Wilkinson. And we discussed the bus statuses with regards to mileage that are currently on them. We discussed the what the capacity was of each of the buses so that everybody was fully understanding what those were. We discussed everything from wages to drivers, wages for drivers to rates, where they're sitting. You know, nobody wants to raise them, but again, everything else, we're looking at making sure everything's equitable there. Mileage as well was something that was discussed. The rate is currently at 61 cents. So it was discussed possibly making that so it's follows the federal rates rather than having to revisit that. Of course, we did the selection of the chairperson. We discussed the Rural Transit Fund Grant. So there's more information that came through that. And I thank Director Wilkinson very much for the work that she's putting in, of course, because she's new to this committee and she's working extremely hard at finding ways that we can improve our grant applications. And I think she's doing an amazing job there. We also discussed the news release that came out November 16th with regards that Jason Nixon, Minister Nixon put out for accessible transportation for seniors in 2024. Well, there was 4 municipalities, I think it was 4, that received funding for those more accessible transportation for seniors. I think there was like Fox Creek, there was 4 different ones. Anyway, 2024 is the year that municipalities can come forward and apply for help and funding there as well. So that's another funding stream that we'll be looking into in hopes to improve our fleets. Oh, and as well, we'd also discussed the summer villages and their invitation to participate. And it was really well supported that we become a delegate to some of the summer villages with regards to this particular program. And so I'll be having a conversation maybe to obtain some contact information after the meeting.
And I know you missed the meeting at the West. There was some conversation around community transportation and they brought some of the Summer Village councillors brought up some of their concerns. And I think at that meeting, Councillor Minns, I'm looking at you to remember this with me, but the encouragement for them was if they didn't like the proposal to come back and say, this is too much for us, but here's something different we'd like to propose and to present it back to the committee.
Yes, that's the way it went. And also when we met with the ones out east, like at Bondus there, we mentioned that to them at the supper too about community transportation and all that. So, and of course, Hiawatha wasn't there, but maybe next time, but we have contacts. You will want to believe.
I think we're moving forward on building relationships that seemed a little bit weak from the past. What I always like the community transportation because I think how can we use this to make the community thrive? And do you know, is there sort of a strategic plan or a master plan available for community transportation and what its role in the community is?
Not as far as I understand. The policy itself just explains the mission statement, the committee structure, the duties and powers and whatnot. But as far as a master plan, I don't believe that there is one.
Thank you. Now, Councilor Gerlich, you have a question?
Yeah. What is the status? There are applications being made to replace one of the buses? Because did I notice that maintenance costs in there were over 50 grand? Or something?
Yes, and what happened there is one of our oldest units that has 366,000 kilometers on it, just about 367, had a replacement of a transmission and an engine. And so it's basically back to kind of square one again for mileage. That's on that particular unit. So that's where the expenses came. At that point, it was, as far as I understand in the budget, much more cost effective to do that than try and purchase a new unit.
Okay. So the balance of the buses in adequate condition.
I'm sorry.
The bus itself is in adequate.
Yes, very much so. So that particular bus as well as a wheelchair. So that's unit 284, pardon me. And it's a wheelchair unit, so you can take one wheelchair and 4 passengers on that particular unit. So it was something that it's really important for that particular fleet. Unit 285 is a 29, so that was a 2015, that one. This 2019 Ford Transit is unit 285. That's can carry 4 wheelchairs and 6 passengers. Or you can change the seats around and do 2 wheelchairs and 12 passengers on that particular one. And that one has 103,559 kilometers as it sits. And then we also have unit 411, which is basically rented from Athabasca County to community transportation, that's the council van. And so that one has 227,675 kilometers, is a 10-seater, and we're putting on approximately 10,000 kilometers a month on the fleet.
Between all three.
Between all three.
Thank you.
Councillor Wallach.
We are well underway for planning the 40th annual Farm Women's Conference happening February 9th at the Multiplex. It's going to be hopefully a big event, and we're looking forward to having some great speakers. Sharon Mallon from CFCW will be our keynote speaker. Lisa Roper from the Outdoors Adventures from Lac La Biche will be speaking, and Girls with Guitars is going to be playing again. There'll be a trade show, and coming in the new year, we'll be looking for some sponsorships and donations to help make the event great. February 9th. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And can I share, did you tell me the other day that one of the folks helping plan it has been planning it for all 40 years? Can you share that with council so that?
Yeah, Mrs. Lorraine Gisselson has been on the Farm Women's Conference since the inception, when it was back at the Alberta government, before it was handed over to the county. So
there's a long service award right there, 40 years of planning a conference. It's amazing, yeah. I had put Greater North on to give you a brief update. So in the last couple of weeks, between, I guess, RMA and now the ministry has authorized a bunch of money to bring some social housing back up to a condition where we can return it to service. The Greater North Foundation received $300,000 to return some of the housing units that we manage for the government, to return them to service. And again, these are homes that the government owns, and so they've provided us some maintenance dollars for them. That will be 12 homes that should go back into service by March. 10 of them are already contracted, and the work on the last 2, they're still doing a bit of work with the requests there. The budget is well underway, and in fact was approved at the meeting on Monday. Requisition amounts aren't ready to come back to the municipalities yet, but they will be soon. As it relates to the financial performance for the for the current year, as usual, and through the careful management of the team there, it's going to be less than projected. They're under budget, and so that's good news. They kind of plan for the worst and are very careful with how they allocate resources, and so they're doing well. They've engaged a firm to work on the asset management plan, and I want to say it was Associated Engineering, but so that's important work for the foundation as it relates to the life cycle planning of the facilities that the foundation actually owns. The facilities that the government owns are not included in that work, because it's separate pots of money, and never the two shall mix. We talked a little bit about the need for housing in the region and in our community. Some work that's happened up at Calling Lake recently with the MD, and the need in Lac La Biche and Boyle and Athabasca. So there's it's an engaged group, and as soon as requisitions are available, they'll come back to administration and to council as an information item, just so that we're all on the same page. Requisitions from GNF are exactly like school foundation requisitions. It's not council's. It's just information that we know. It's nothing that we choose. Joint Rec.
Thank you. Joint Recreation, whoa, Joint Recreation Committee. Our committee met on November 23rd to discuss potential amendments to the memorandum of agreement. As council, we have prioritized building and enhancing our regional partnerships. And so the CAOs of the county and village have been tasked with drafting a terms of reference for the committee and an updated cost sharing agreement for the committee to review. And then those agreements will be forwarded to councils for review. And I just really think these agreements are one more step in solidifying our partnerships with the Village of Boyle and ensuring that these services will always be available. So I look forward to bringing that forward to you, hopefully by spring.
It's kind of a common theme, I think, with this group, long-term thinking. Those are the reports that were selected for discussion. Is there a motion to accept them as information? Councillor Gerlich has moved. The reports be accepted for information. If there's no further discussion on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? The motion is adopted 8-0. It's in order to receive a motion to enter a closed session. Councillor Mins has moved. We enter closed session. On the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? That motion is carried 8-0. We'll take a 5-minute reset while we close the room.